the George Ryals. Welcome to the podcast, mate. It's an honor to have you on. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Mate, I think we were chatting off air. I mentioned that I had Joel Turner on a little while ago, and he started talking about you a little bit, and he kept going on that he thought he was a much better shot than you.
Oh, well, with Barebow, he probably is.
Uh, nah, he was, as I said, I had him on. He was a good lad, and we had some plenty of laughs, but no, he didn't mention that one. I just thought I'd throw it in for a bit of a piss take, to be honest.
hmm
But yeah, as I said, I did have him on, and he went into the weeds about the shot process and the target panic side of shooting a bow, right into the weeds, obviously with his like neuro linguistic programming and the thoughts aren't thinking side of things. And he did actually mention you a little bit on the podcast, and then I began to research yourself and watched some of your seminars and stuff, and I thought, oh, it would be a really great link to have his knowledge on one of the podcasts, and then the other side of the house, or one of the other sides of the house, being some form stuff and stuff like that you have a lot of expertise in. So I thought, mate, it would be a really great opportunity to get you on and share some of that side of things with people on the archery front.
hmm Yeah, what I
Obviously,
can
yeah.
do, as you're ready, I didn't see your outline, but as you're ready, I'll kind of make the connections between, what Joel Turner's specialty is and what it is that I teach. I kind of have an overall sort of thing, and he has a specialty, within that. So I'll kind of, it's not really a one side of the house and the other side of the house. It's actually just like a piece.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. As I said, primarily the audience is bow hunters, but as we sort of discussed off air there, having quality archery form is still a huge part of that whole process, right?
Yeah, it's actually even more critical. A lot of guys think, it's just bow hunting. We spend a lot of time getting our sight marks and tuning our bows and doing a lot of long range group tuning and, things like that with our target bows. But when you add a broadhead to the end of the arrow, form becomes way more critical. Bow tune is critical. Your skill for shooting in the wind, because broadheads change the behavior of the arrows as you're shooting in the wind. So it's actually, if there's a higher amount of precision required to shoot an accurate bow hunting shot than it does to shoot an X in Vegas,
Mm.
because in Vegas, I'm 20 yards away. There's no wind. It's comfortable. We've got soft seats to sit in and a Twinkie tray. And, we're just over here shooting our arrows and just hanging out. Well, you're hanging from a saddle up in a tree and a deer walks out and your nerves go from 0 to 1,000 in about 3 seconds. And then your target is walking around and you've got a very precise spot that you have to shoot on this thing, and sometimes it cooperates and sometimes it doesn't, right? So it's quite a bit easier to be accurate target archery than it is bow hunting, because a broadhead, it magnifies your errors. The little errors that make you miss an X can make you make a terrible shot on an animal,
Mm.
so it's I guess what you could say is it's more of a life or death situation that you hit what you're shooting at in bow hunting than it is in target archery. I mean, you miss an axe in target, nobody cares. Unless you're beating them, nobody cares. But in bow hunting, there's, a lot more at stake there.
Hmm. Well, you owe it to the animal as well, don't you?
Right.
Yeah. That's cool, mate. Yeah, as I said, I didn't actually know if I would end up getting you on, so I do appreciate it. As I mentioned, sorry to get you up early. I think you were just finishing off your breakfast there as well as we jumped on.
Yeah, I have this whole like collision of dates and things I have to be ready for. It all kind of came together yesterday. And I'm thinking, oh, and I got to be up. I was still up at 3, and I'm like, oh, I got to be up at 7. So I've had about 4 hours sleep, and it was rough. It was rough dragging myself out of bed to get up here to the shop to do this morning. But I'm glad I'm here. But it was a serious drag to get myself moving.
Oh man, like I said, I really do appreciate it. So yeah, it's good to it's lovely to meet you, and I do appreciate it, mate. So good on you. Mate, just quickly, so you've obviously, heavily involved with archery. You've been a pro archer for over 25 years. You've won awards as a coach, and you have your archery school there, which we might touch on a little bit. Yeah, heavily focused in the archery world as a huge part of your life. When did you first pick up a bow, and how did that sort of look for you? Did you have a mentor, like a parent or something that got you into hunting with a bow, or was it strictly target stuff? How did that look for you to start off?
Well, um, I've never I've never really not shot a bow, right? My dad was a bow hunter, and the whole love of archery started just watching him shoot his bow in the backyard, getting ready to bow hunt. He was an average Joe with a bow, recurve in the 70s, out trying to shoot deer. And back then, here in the state of Georgia, there weren't a lot of deer in the 70s, and we had an allotment of one deer that you could shoot, and if you even saw one, it was kind of a big deal. Nowadays, it's 90 deer per square mile, and they'll let you drop bricks on their heads if you'll just get them out of there, right? So the deer population here in the southeast is a huge success story for game management and all. And my dad was just an average guy with a bow, and he gave me one of his old arrows. And I did the same story as a lot of people who's been in it their whole life. They got an arrow, they made a bow, we ran around. But I got lucky that I fell in with the right group of people. Like I was archery crazy, running around with this bow. The next door neighbor gave me this little fiberglass bow, which I still have, by the way. It's kind of crazy, but it's still here. But I had this little fiberglass bow, and I ran around shooting at squirrels and stuff in the neighborhood. And my grandmother drove me. I spent the weekends at her house, and she was the one that really supported it. My dad had to work, and we were the classic 70s latchkey kids where you get up, you go to school, you come home, you take dinner out of the freezer and set it in the sink to defrost, and then run around the neighborhood unattended like a wild Indian until your parents got home at 7 o'clock at night. So we pretty much grew up, just fending for ourselves. And my grandmother took me to Buckskin Archery in Kennesaw, Georgia, and they had an indoor range in there, and they had target shooters in there with full-on target rigs shooting, and I watched them, and of course, they see this starry-eyed kid standing in the wings, and they're like, here, come over here, here's a bow, here, shoot at this. And and they kind of pulled me in, and my entire life story is lucky happenstance that I bumped into this person, or I
Hmm.
walked into this shop, or I did this thing, right? And it those moments of curiosity, or where I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go to Vegas, right? And I just got on a plane and went to Vegas. I had no idea what was going on, what it took to win, or anything, and I just went for the first time. I was like 15, got on a plane and just went. And compound archery wasn't really fully developed in the late 70s, early 80s. It was getting there, but where everybody kind of invented how to paper tune and how to time your bows, and you know what to do with what spine arrow. A lot of times we were applying recurve knowledge to compound knowledge,
Hmm.
or to compounds. and a lot of that doesn't transfer. And I still have a lot of that, recurve stuff that's been passed forward over the years that doesn't apply to compounds at all. And a lot of times it's actually a detriment, to your overall form of compound. But there was an archery shop uh, in between my dad's work and my school. So I could go to that archery shop and dad could come around and pick me up. So I'm 10 or 12 and I'm fletching arrows in this archery shop. And I have some of the greatest shooters that's ever lived walk through that archery shop and worked on their bows and tunes. So I got to kind of sit in the room and watch them invent this stuff and like
Mm.
kind of develop target archery into what it is today. So it was a really interesting time because you couldn't just hop on the internet and search up YouTube and watch people shoot bows. I mean, you actually had to go to the library and ask the librarian, "Do you have any books on archery?" And she'd go, "What?" Right? It's archery, bow and arrow. And she'd hand you books about Indians and that
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
nothing. So and I just developed over time. I bumped into who became my archery coach. I just happened to walk in his place one day and he's like, "You know what, you're pretty good, but do you want a tip?" Oh yeah, sure, give me a tip. And he started teaching me. And his name was Bill Mills, and he had won Vegas twice in a row, once with a recurve and a release aid. And the Professional Archery Association had said they had decided they weren't going to allow release aids. And the release aid was one of those little ledge things, that you just hook on the string and pull it back. I've got one here, I can show it to you, but um he won that year with that. Then they says, okay, releases are banned. And so he shows up with a tab on his thumb, kind of like how Joel Turner shoots, has a tab on his thumb with a left-handed riser, with the cushion plunger and all, and then shot a thumb release the next year and won Vegas again. Um, and he was shooting perfect scores in 1970, 1971, 72, in there. So he kind of took me under his wing, along with a couple of other guys that were in the area shooting, who also turned out to be, stellar shooters. One of them was Jeff Rogers. He lives up in North Georgia, and he's won Vegas 4 times. And there's really only 2 or 3 dudes that's won Vegas more than twice or three
Yeah.
times. So he was huge, right? And so that's kind of like how I got started. It's the classic story of dad gives you an arrow and you make your own bow and you run around, and it just slowly developed from there. And I kind of went archery crazy. I was trying to bow hunt and trying to shoot archery. I had 2 targets set up. Once I discovered target archery, I had 2 targets set up in the yard so I could get enough arrows in practice before it got dark after school. I'd come home. I was a terrible student, by the way, but I got home and I dropped my books in the floor and I would go outside with my bow and I would shoot this way and ride my bike to the target, pull the arrows out, and then shoot that way. And I would shoot each direction so that I could get more arrows in the time that I had riding a bicycle back and forth. So I was trying to not waste time with the walking, right? So it worked out, and I had a blast. So I am going on 53, and the first tournament I shot was in 1977. So I've been at it for a ways.
Yeah, bloody oath. Yeah, but it sounds like like you had an awesome way to grow up. And one thing that sort of touched my mind there was like you sort of mentioned it. You got lucky there a few times just by happening to meet this certain person, and that
Mhm.
sort of shaped different parts of your archery or your life there. Do you ever think about that, you being that person now, if you meet someone young or, there's potentially a fairly big influence I imagine you can have on people now, but meeting someone new or, putting like not just, I guess, brushing people off, or if someone, is struggling or they're a young person's coming in and wanting to learn, are you giving them time and a little, maybe that one tip, or like you mentioned, that might shape their life in a way that you never would have thought?
Yeah, that's the whole point, with why I have this training center and archery team. I I got lucky enough to get involved with some like truly great people. Some of them were like the fathers of modern archery, and the they took time for me for no reason at all, right? They just decided they were going to help me. And they were like, hey, we're going to nationals. Why don't you get in the car with us and we're going to go? And I had a mentor. He happened to be in buckskin archery when I walked in there that very first time. And years later, I was in my late teens, and he walked into archer shop I was running at the time, and he wanted archery lessons, wanted to work on his archery. 100% target archer. And this guy, his name was Hank Rudolph. He was a fighter pilot ace in World War II, and he's one of the most decorated fighter pilots in the history of aviation. He was also vice president of Scott Paper Company, which is a huge paper company. And he started talking to me, like, what are you doing with your life? Where are you headed? And he started mentoring me. He would tell me I'm being dumb or I'm making a mistake or you really shouldn't do that. What were you thinking? Like that kind of thing. And I would also bounce ideas like when I got the opportunity to move across the country and work for Martin Archery Company. I was wobbling because, thinking back, I was wobbling on the idea because I was scared, right? Because I was about to leave home and drive all the way across the country to some place I've never been. And I was making excuses like, oh, it's cold and it's gonna snow, it snows there, and I don't know. And he basically, had me by my collar going, look, you're being an idiot. This is your big break. If you want to have an archery lifestyle and you want to work in the archery industry, this is it.
Mhm.
If you don't go, I think I'll have to kill you. Right. So I was like, okay, okay, I'm
I better go. I
going.
better go. Yeah.
He gave me a push when I needed it and stayed in touch. He was one of those guys. He was a rock solid guy, just kind of short and square. And in his mid to late 80s, he could shoot 60x games on the NFAA Blueface. And that's kind of unheard of. Usually, when a shooter gets up into their 60s, they get a little shaky and start kind of missing a little bit here and there.
Mhm.
But he was still a 60x shooter, you know, way up into his 80s. I think the last time I shot with him in his driveway, he shot a 60x game and he was 88, and we're just standing in his driveway and he is pounding the middle out of it. And his target looked just like these young guys that are tearing it up right now. His target looked like their target, you
Yeah.
know.
Wow.
And back then we didn't have big giant 2712 arrows or anything. We were shooting like 1916s or 2114s, little thin aluminum arrows, and he's shooting 60x games. So I got super lucky that people like him spent time on me.
Mm.
I was at Martin Archery working with Gail Martin. I made some huge mistakes out there that cost a lot of money, and he didn't fire me. You know, I broke a machine out in the machine shop by just making a mistake, and I crashed one of their big milling centers. And he goes, well, we got production to do, so you better figure out how to fix that fast. I thought I was fired, right? And he's like, what are you doing to fix the machine? I was like, what? I'm not fired. He goes, no, I need you to fix the machine. Right. So, so, uh, I fell in with good people like them that took their time. And the only way that I can actually repay that is by taking the time for other people.
Mm.
And I had this kind of life arc sort of planned out since I was a kid. It's like, okay, I'm going to work in archery shops. I'm going to gather skill. I'm going to go pro. I'm going to win a bunch of tournaments and then work for archery manufacturers and get really good at that. And then when I'm retirement age, I will I'll maybe open up a little training center and, maybe start teaching kids and kind of pass this on.
Mm.
Well, I left Martin Archery and went to Stanislavski and redesigned their entire release aid line and relaunched the Stanislavski
Love them.
brand and
Love
all
them.
that.
Love them.
And
Good as Dan. Yeah.
I worked with them for several years, and they laid me off. And I'm standing there at 40 going, I got to come up with something new. So I interviewed at Hoyt. I interviewed at uh, Lancaster Archery Supply. And my wife at the time, she goes, I'm glad you got fired because this will give you a good opportunity. She said, I'm okay with the fact that you got laid off and, we may have to move and, go somewhere else, so you can get another job. She said, but I'll feel a lot better about it if you stop making money for other people.
Mm.
So I thought, well, how am I gonna turn all this, around for me? And, then I was coaching back then and teaching people just on a one-on-one basis. Folks would contact me and go, hey, can you help me out? I was like, yeah, just come on down and I'll, walk you through. So I have been supervising and teaching people since my mid 20s.
Right.
And here I am at 40. So I decided I'll move back, to my home state. And target archery was really weak. There was really only one group out there that was really pushing target archery and trying to keep tournaments going and keep Georgia state championships happening and all of that. So I came home and I threw in with that group and started kind of working with them to build it up. I started hosting events and doing the thing. And we started a little junior archery club, and then they expanded and grew. And I ended up with this traveling archery team. And I thought I was going to be 65 when I started all this. And here I am at 40 and I'm doing it.
Mm.
So, um, we had this traveling archery team, and they would go out to the events and they'd meet other kids who needed good coaching, didn't have coaches, and were just out there in the woods, just trying to figure it out by themselves. And they're like, hey, come with us. We got a cool team and we have a blast and we like you. So just come down here and do a camp with us and let George teach you how to do this. So I ended up with what I call off campus kids, and four of them are from Australia even, and they meet at world events and things like that, and they become friends. And I do this with them online. They come up, they'll spend a week with me here and shoot archery. So I now have students spread around the world, and I have a really strong local crew here. And we all either travel together or we meet up at the events. And it occurred to me that archery is a really good way to teach life lessons, and you can confront fear, and you can motivate yourself. You can learn personal discipline. You can learn self control.
Mm.
You can learn how to be still, right? And all of those are great skills out in the business world. And in the context of archery, you can experiment and test yourself against those in a safe way. Because if you make a mistake in archery, you just miss. You don't lose your job
Mm.
or lose your wife or, you know, uh, cause, life altering problems, in the long run. You just miss, but you still deal with the feeling, and you deal with the fire breathing dragon, let's say, and you can slay these over and over again as you're becoming better, as a shooter.
Mm.
But I always tell them is you got to keep your life straight so your arrows fly straight, because you see it all the time. You got this pro, he's on top of the world, and he ends up in a divorce, and he's not on top anymore. And it takes him a while to rebuild back and get back on the podium again. And it's a great illustration of how uh, uh, we call archery a sport. It's really a performance art. It's not really a sport.
Mm.
But I know folks who go, hearing me say that, but it's really not. You know, um, we're basically performing a shot, and the judge tells us how good we did. The target is the judge, right? If you do it perfectly, you get a 10, right? If you do it like crap, you get a 7, right? So when I realized that archery is a great teacher, I can use the whole team experience and the whole commingling of skills, when I get this group of guys together, and it's really fun because they're all in the same stage of their lives,
Mhm.
and they're all dealing with the same problems at the same time. Um, you've never had more fun than you would have if you went to a collegiate archery tournament, because they're all in the same stage of life, and they're just there having a rager of a party. And oh, also there's some archery going on that they got to pay attention to. Right. So
Nice.
so it's a blast, and I have been able to kind of fulfill my missions, so to speak, with this archery team, so that I can help other people. I use archery as a tool, so they're confronted with lessons that need to be learned. And then I can kind of guide them through figuring it out and being successful through that. And this whole endeavor is a lot of the past kids, like some of the earliest kids that I taught, they're now married with their own kids.
Yeah.
And some of them have kids old enough, they're beginning to come back around. They're at that age where we're just exposing them to archery. They get the little tiny bow and fling a few arrows, and they flew away when they went to college, and they stayed in touch, and then they got married, and then they have kids, and then they come back with their kids, right?
Mm.
And I've seen how the group works together. Like the biggest example of kind of how this works is like I don't know how familiar you are with the archery industry as a whole, but have you heard of UltraView?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Hundred
Um,
percent. Yeah.
so UltraView was founded by Colby Hanley. And Colby is one of my team kids. He lived in Vermont, and he ended up, he's like, what am I going to study in school? What am I going to do with my life? And I was like, well, the archery industry has pretty much topped out on what they can do with the current materials at hand. So if you were big in material science, you may come up with new materials. you may come up with blends of old materials that give higher performance. So maybe material science would be really useful to the archery industry if you were a rock star in material sciences. So he moved down here and went to Georgia Tech and was going through that. And he's standing in the range going, I'm starving to death. I'm in college and I don't have enough money to go to all the archery events. And I said, well, you just got to figure it out because you're going to the events. So you just got to figure it out.
Mhm.
So he's like, well, and I told him, I says, you know, those little fingers on the releases and the Hoyt has a replaceable grip. What if you 3D printed those in colors? Folks would snap those things up. So he started doing that. And it grew just a story that I told him about Dave Cousins and I Velcroing flashlights into our riser so that it would shine on the scope so that we could see when it was overcast and cloudy and rainy at field events. And I said, well, nowadays everybody uses a fluorescent sticker dot or a fiber. So if instead of a flashlight, if that was a UV light, it would make that fluorescent material or that fiber optic material, it would make it glow. So it wouldn't take a tremendous amount of light because it would glow with its own light. So he's
Mm.
looked up Amazon, just standing right here in the range, looked up Amazon, found a pen light that was LED, designed a little armature that would hold the head so it would shine on the scope. And they would bring me their things that they're making. And I go, okay, well, you know, this is good, but, you know, that's going to break. And what if you do it this way? You know, and I'm kind of teaching them the whole product design thing too, as they're kind of developing their things. And so it went from an armature holding a light head that would fit on any scope to him making his own scope and his business was in my basement for a good while. Then it grew to the back half of the archery shop. Then it grew to a 2,500 square foot facility. Now he's in a 20,000 square foot facility. He's probably got 50 employees
So good.
and they are just jamming and they're turning out some of the best products in archery I've ever seen. They're like trying to create the absolute pinnacle, like premium quality in each category,
Mhm.
like release aids. And now he's got a slider sight, a scope, right? So they're going through various things, and the entire group out there at Ultraview is passionate about archery. So they want to make stuff that they want to shoot.
Yeah, right.
But all of that grew out of the team experience. So Colby made Ultraview. Chris B wanted to make hunting videos and do YouTube, and he grew that up off to the side. And then they got together, and Chris used his media megaphone to help promote Colby's manufacturing, stuff. So they're as adults, adults that are married and some of them have kids, they're all still working together. It's like, I need this thing done. Well, so and so has that special talent. Let me call him
Mm.
and see if he can help me with this. And next thing you know, they're collaborating and they've made a product or they've done a thing, right? So it has been a amazing time to be able to work with these people and watch them develop and watch them kind of bloom into who they're going to be. And all the while, they're using archery as the tool
Mm.
to just gather around, right? It's the thing, like football or other sports. You're striving against something, right? And you learn those same life lessons in team sports and things like that too. But archery is a pretty good way for nerdy, unathletic kids to still participate in something that gives them challenges. I was one of those can't run, can't jump, but I'm really good at standing still. So eat my dust, right?
I like the analogy. That's
Yep.
awesome, mate. It sounds great. Yeah, and No, man, it's a credit to you for the things that you've contributed to these guys' lives, and also the archery community. I'm sure is a better place from all those years of your efforts.
Yeah. And it's just been fantastic. I have two kids of my own, and I have this gathering of amazing people that my kids got to grow up with.
Mm.
So they got all of those extra good examples of people who are striving for something and being successful and having self-discipline and doing those kind of things. So it was really great. It helped me out a lot because it helped me raise my kids while I was trying to raise other people's kids.
Mm.
See how that goes.
Nice work. I like it, mate. Yeah, that's a bloody good story, mate. If, again, talking off air, uh, I thought it would be a really good fit to have you come on and talk about some technique stuff on the archery side of things. Again, focusing on bow hunting, but yeah, that crossover, as we spoke about, being probably even more important now after listening to your analogy there. So yeah, if it's all right with you, could we go on to a few little form things like some things, setups, etc., before even pulling back the bow, which can have some. I've heard you talking about how much can be dictated or how successful your shot can be before or by doing certain things before even pulling the bow back.
hmm Yeah, we're essentially, I'm going to try to boil it down to the barest basics. It's the easiest way. Um, it's not necessarily what you do, right? The form, but what's required is that whatever it is that you do, you have to do it in an extremely consistent way. So the reason that we have a book example that this is perfect form, right? The reason that we have that book example of what perfect form is that's basically the biomechanical definition of what your body has to do to effectively pull this or bend this spring and release this sharp stick into the middle of this target, right? So there's a biomechanical, like efficient way so that you can do this repetitiously multiple times without getting an injury or making a sore muscle. And, for everybody out there listening, if archery hurts, something doesn't fit. I have had hundreds of people say, my shoulders are just, my shoulders hurt to the point that I can't shoot enough arrows. I can only shoot about 50 or 60 arrows. And I'm like, well, get down here. Let me take a look. And I find out their draw length is
Draw
3 inches
length.
too short.
Yeah.
And that's why their shoulders hurt. So the form aspect is once you're at full draw and you're holding the bow, you don't have a very good perception of uh your body position anymore because you're under pressure and you're holding this bow. So the setup, that's the point where you've pulled an arrow out of your quiver. Let me back up just a little bit. My cord is a little bit, but you pull the arrow out of your quiver, you snap it on, you put your release on the string, you set your fingers in the release, you set your hand in the grip, and then set your body up to the target and get set. Right, that's set. Everything that you do, how you put your hand in the bow, how you put your hand in the release, and how you set your body up to the target, you can feel your position and see where you are when everything is right here, right in front of your face. So you can get that exactly accurate. Then, when you set your body up, you have your nose on the target and your body is set. Then we'll pick the bow up and then put that up to our body without moving it.
Mm.
That's how you control your consistency.
Yeah.
Most people do that backwards. They pull the bow back and they climb in and look through the peep and hunt the target down, right?
Yeah.
And then their groups are big because the shots vary so much. If you think of it as like a spectrum, and
Yeah.
in the middle is the perfect shot, and then you can kind of overdo it or underdo it, right? And you're kind of in there somewhere. So when you're new to archery, your spectrum is really wide. But when you're pro, it's so narrow, I have to slow it down and really look at something in slow motion to find mistakes. When there's a pro and they have this nagging mistake that's causing them to miss one ever so often, uh, we have to look really close, because when they're already shooting perfect or near perfect scores, you got to look really close to find
Yeah.
the
Right.
improvements there. But the biggest thing is that your setup, how you set yourself and get ready to pull the bow back, is about 80% of what it takes to shoot an accurate arrow.
Wow.
And then do it again, right?
Mm.
Because I challenge people who are bow hunters that their main thing is bow hunting. They're going to stand in the yard and they're going to shoot arrow, 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 arrow. They're going to look at their groups. They're going to sight everything in. But when you're a bow hunter, you may sit still in the woods for 3 hours or more before something actually comes out. And you have one chance to get that right. You don't have any warm ups. You don't have any get readies or any of that. You got one chance. So practicing that form of getting the fingers right, getting the grip right, setting yourself up to the target, and then putting the bow up to you without moving anything will make that first shot an accurate one, right?
Mm.
And I'll tell them, if you're preparing for I deal a lot with what I call adventure bow hunters. They're going to Patagonia to shoot a red deer, and then they're going to go to New Zealand and shoot a tar, and then they're going to, right, those guys. And I tell them, put their archery target out in the yard and set your bow up with an arrow in it. And when you walk out of the house and you're getting ready to get in your car and go, pick your bow up, range that target, set your sight, and shoot a shot, hang the bow on a hook and go to work. When you get home, pull the arrow out, move the target somewhere else in a different position, and snap the arrow back in your bow, right? Of course, you might shoot a little bit that night and just kind of work on your skill, but you still have to practice that single shot,
Mm.
right? And that's the best way to do it. When you get up in the morning, you showered, you got ready, you walk out of the house and you're cold, like you've
Oh,
been
more.
sitting
Yep.
still all day, right? And then you can see what it takes to shoot that one shot. And if you do that, you know, all through spring and summer prepping for the fall bow season, you'll be 100% confident that you're going to be able to do it, because you've done it 1,000 times before that cold single shot.
Mm.
So you'll be 100% confident that you could do it. The basis of being able to do that is a very simple, clean form that you've done enough so that it's repeatable.
Yeah, I like it. I heard you talking about stance. So, uh, with your feet and stuff like that, a relaxed stance with slightly open stance towards whatever you're sort of shooting at. But then I heard you use the analogy of clawing your toes to give yourself some stability as well, and slightly pushing your feet outwards with a bit of a clawing of your toes. Do you want to just
Right.
quickly hit on that a little bit?
So setting your feet, it all depends on your balance. Because let's say my index fingers are my big toes, right? So let's say I'm standing like this, feet kind of close together because the ground is a little bumpy or whatever. My feet are kind of close together. And I'm at full draw and I can feel myself, right? Have you ever felt that when you're at full draw and you feel like your body is leaning while the shot goes? So essentially what you're doing is you're going to hang a heavy weight out on the end of this lever here. So that changes your balance. So wherever your big toes are, that protects your balance. So let's look at my hands like I'm looking straight down at my feet, right? So I'll set my feet dead square with each other. And then this is just the basic. I'll take a half a step forward with the back foot and then turn this foot out toward the target.
Yep.
Now, let's say I'm out there shooting and I'm standing on a little bit of a slope and I find myself leaning. So my form can't be fixed in that situation. I got to move that big toe a little bit farther away so that I can get some balance so I don't feel like I'm tumbling off the hill while I'm at full draw. So you'll adjust your form and the rotation of your feet, the width they are apart for stability. If you're going to shoot a steep downhill shot, your footing will be completely different than what you would shoot a shot that's straight, flat, straight
Mm.
across. Now, the coring of the feet is in target archery, you're trying to be as still as possible, and it might be windy. So if you kind of screw your legs, like if you're standing on your feet and you just kind of press outwards with your feet, almost like you're trying to screw your feet into the ground, and you'll notice that that activates your legs and your butt and your lowest abdominals, right?
Mhm.
Which will help your foundation be a lot more steady. And and that technique works best when you're indoors or when you're outdoors shooting just straightforward target archery. When you're bow hunting, you might be kneeling, you might be sitting flat on your butt, you
Mm.
might be leaning out around a tree trying to get a shot on something. So this unit up here, these two dots, right, the tips of your shoulders, right? If you get, no matter what, if you get those pointed at the target, right, get this pointed at the target, and then draw your bow, put the pin on, then look through the peep like that, the shot will be set up, even if it's extreme uphill or extreme downhill.
Mm.
Um, one of those bow hunting things you hear all the time where people say, draw your bow back level and then
Bend from the hip.
bend at
Yep.
the waist, right? So you may notice, so you're all hooked in with your headphones and stuff, so you can't experiment with this. But if anybody listening, if you stand up and get yourself level and make bow hands, like you are full draw, and then just bend over at the waist, you'll see that as soon as you get to right about here, your back foot starts to come up off of the ground. So I don't know who made that advice up and spread it around, but everyone will give you that tip when you're shooting on a hilly course, and it's absolutely wrong. What you'll do is take these two dots and point them at the target first.
Being your
And
shoulders for people that
your,
can't see. Yep.
uh-huh. Yeah, you get your shoulders here and
So
you
if you're
tip.
shooting upwards, yep, you'll put your
Yeah,
shoulders in line with the target. So your front shoulder will be facing up and your
correct.
back shoulder is, yep, in line with the trajectory of your arrow. Yeah.
That's right. So I'm going to take the bow and I'm holding it in my hands, kind of out away from my body. So that way I can set my footing. I can experiment with my balance and go, okay, that feels solid. All right, I'm ready. And then I get set up on the angle of the target. You know, when you draw your bow, you draw a little bit above the target and then just come down to it. So you'll do the same thing. You'll draw a little bit above the target, boom, and then you'll put the pin on, anchor, looking through the peak, right? So everything is set. You may have noticed that when you're shooting uphill, the shot feels a little sloppy and you can't quite get through the shot, right? And
Mm.
when you're shooting downhill, it seems a little tight and it seems stronger downhill. And that's because when you do this, you decrease your draw length. If you just raise your hand to shoot uphill. But if you align your entire upper body to shoot uphill before you draw the bow, your upper torso is in the exact same shape as if you're shooting level. you're just shooting uphill. So the shot will be the same. And likewise, if you set up downhill first before you draw your bow back, right? And this upper unit will still be the same, right? So the key here is line your shoulders up with the target first, draw the bow, put the pin on the target, and you put the pin on the target before you look through the peep. A lot of people do that backwards. They draw back,
Yeah, I want to
anchor,
touch on that.
look
Can we
through the
touch on
peep.
that? I want to ask you a couple of questions about that. Maybe we can. I'll just wait a little bit because I really want to hit on that
Okay,
point. I
all right.
just
I won't explain
yeah.
it fully just yet then. But you put the pin on, you look through the peep, anchor, and then boom, and you'll have the exact same feeling shot. It'll take the same amount of pressure to make the release go off, and the bow will be stable. The reason that you're unstable shooting uphill or downhill versus dead level is because the pressure between you and the bow is what manages the overall stability of the bow. And if you lose pressure while you're aiming, you get instability. And the sight pin, when you know what you're looking at, the sight pin is telling you everything that you got going on. If it's right, it'll be stable and predictable. If your form or your setup is wrong, it'll be unstable, right?
Mhm.
And you'll have to wait for it. You may have noticed, like, sometimes you'll pull a bow back and the shot never really settles, right? Sometimes you may pull the bow back and for no reason at all, it is dead rock steady. Have you had that where you pull
Mm.
your bow back and for no
Yeah.
reason at all, it's just dead still? That one time that you pulled back and everything was dead still, you got everything right.
That's when I
That
put the
was your
bow away,
signal.
mate. That's when I put it away. Go, I'm
And when
not
you
getting
hang
any
it on
better
the
than that
hook,
one.
it's
That's when I
dead
put it away
still.
for the day. That could be my first shot of the day. I'm like, it ain't getting any better than that, brother. Put her in the rack.
So I
I'm only
tell
going
people that
downhill from here.
So I tell people that I'm giving lessons to that when you pull your bow back and it's dead still, don't shoot it right away. Take a minute and review. What can you
What the
feel?
fuck did I do here? How did I do
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
What did I do? What am I doing? What can I feel? How is this? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that'll help you get closer to what it is you're doing right. Because no matter how new you are with archery, you're going to stumble into it and get it right a few times here
Mm.
and there. So if you're very aware when that particular shot works out really well and focus on that, really get to the bottom of what it is that's causing you to hit middle, right?
Mm.
Most folks spend all their time trying to figure out what their mistake is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's the idea that I'm going to figure out this mistake and I'm going to get to the bottom of this mistake and I'm going to study this mistake, right? But let's say you know exactly what you did, right? If you don't study what you want, you're still not going to get it,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So I always tell people, if you shoot a bad shot, just load your bow, right? And try again.
Yeah, okay.
When you shoot a really good shot, take a second and go, all right, what happened? How did I do that? Right? What's
Mm.
causing all these tens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me get to the bottom of this success here and figure out what's going on, right?
Awesome.
So that's kind of how that works. That's the basics of like training yourself
Yeah.
and how to know when you've got it right and how to know when it's just not right, right? And so anyway, the footing will be getting back to the original point, the footing will be malleable, but a good basic start is start with your feet close together and your back foot half a step forward and then turn your front foot open just a little bit toward the target where it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's a really good kind of a 3-point stance. Your front toe kind of pointing toward the target gives you some support for the weight, the weight of your bow out on the end of your arm, right?
Mm.
And the back foot kind of being a little bit forward, that gives you a little bit of balance protection when you lean forward.
Nice.
And when you sit instead of having your torso up straight, really tall with a little arch in your back, you sit down on your hips, kind of like you're sitting on a stool, and it'll make your back kind of flat. So that way you get plenty of clearance with your bow arm. You won't hit your arm with the string near as much, and you'll be a lot more still, and your stance will work for you better.
Awesome, mate. What about your grip on the bow? So your grip hand, I've heard you talking about that analogy, have, pardon me, having your hand straight out, your thumb lower than your forefingers and squeezing
Mhm.
between your thumb and forefinger around the pressure that you wouldn't break an egg. Can we just touch on that? I know
So I
uh,
can show you, I can give you kind of a graphic representation here. I got my little shot trainer here at my desk, and I can kind of show you how this works.
there's so
So
many questions I want to ask you, and I know you're a little bit short on time, so I want to try and get through a few, but you
yeah,
really,
I
yeah,
got a,
so
I got, I got, I have a little bit more time. My first one is my first appointment of the day is going to be in 55 minutes. So we have a little
uh,
bit of time.
yeah. Well,
First off, when you're putting your hand in the bow, right, and I'm going to show you kind of like as if I'm pointing at you. When you're going to put your hand in the bow, when you do, as you said, your forefinger is going to be a little bit higher than your thumb, and you have your hand flat to the floor. And when you have it flat to the floor, you point your thumb at the target. You see how I have my thumb kind of open
yeah.
and it's looking at the target. The fingerprint of my thumb is kind of looking at the target.
Mm-hmm.
And at the base of my thumb and forefinger, that's where I apply that light pinch. So that goes in the bow right there, like so. And I've got my hand in it. You can kind of see what that position is. And I'll apply a little pinch, just a light pinch,
Between
and
your
then
thumb and
go
forefinger, yeah.
that, right? So that's kind of what it looks like from the rear, like this. And I'll just kind of tuck these fingers in like that, and I'll touch this one to the front of my bow, like so. But let me show you, let me set my phone up so you can see. I'm going to show you right quick what that pinch actually does and why it works. Because I find, like Joel, he goes through the explanations of all the neuroscience and everything with the idea that he's going to give you an understanding of why. Oh, it's a bunch of, techno mumbo jumbo, but he's trying to give you a um, a good basis of why it is that you have to do these things. And I find that when people understand the why, it's easier for them to get it right.
Mhm.
Right. So check this out. So you can see right here, I've got I'm just doing it right here at my desk. So you see those two lines right there on the trainer, and the
Yeah.
trainer is pivotally mounted like this, right? So if I just put pressure on the strings and I put my hand in the bow and just relax my hand, you see how that misaligns? And
Yeah.
if I really relax, it'll really misalign. You
Like
see
you're
there?
talking it, right? Like you're talking the
Right,
bow, yeah.
yeah. So watch, I'll just open my hand and see what it does.
Go straight.
So
Yeah.
when I do that little bit of a pinch between my thumb and forefinger, you see it lines right up.
Mm-hmm.
You see there?
Yeah.
So when you put that pinch on, that straightens the V, the little fork in the stick, right? That's holding your grip.
Mm-hmm.
That puts that in line with your forearm so that the pressure is straight to the target rather than at an angle. And that's why people have trouble with their broadhead left rights, is because they add that little bit of an angle because their grip isn't on, right?
Mm.
It's just there and mushy. Everybody says, relax your grip, right? You don't really want your grip relaxed. You want it just turned on so that your hand shape and pressure doesn't melt during the aiming process,
Right.
causing a wide spectrum of form. It's going to make your arrows scatter left, right, all over the target. And that simple little tip, just that light pinch between at the base of your forefinger and thumb, just that light little pinch holds everything straight, and it adds a lot more steadiness in your bow too. If you've noticed, your hunting bow with a short stabilizer will vibrate left, right like that.
Mm,
When you turn that pinch on, totally takes it away.
mate. Love it.
You'll sit dead rock steady.
Mate, we sort of touched on it a little bit there. Um, and I sort of stopped you because I didn't want to. I was one of my main things. I started watching your seminars, and I used to draw my bow back. The pinch helped me heaps, and one of the things I used to do was have my bow basically directly pointed at the target, and almost a low draw across, a little bit higher than my chest, but putting pressure through my shoulders. And I again started watching your seminars, and I changed my shot style based on what I was watching of yours, and started shooting a blank bale heaps, as opposed to just shooting out to 20, 30 yards on a 3D target going, oh, I won't focus on my aim. I'll do all my form stuff. And then always, I just couldn't help it. It was focusing on my aim. But one of the things I sort of learned early was, draw back, come to your anchor, then find your peep. And I know that and you touched on it before, it's slightly different, like having your nose pointed toward the target, and then coming as you've got a straighter arm. Can you talk a little bit about how you come down a little bit rather than just having your bow directly pointed at the target, and then
Right.
why you like to take up your aim through your sight before you get your anchor point, and the reasons why that is? Because I've had a big difference since I started doing it your way. I feel like it's had a massive difference. Joel actually critiqued me, going, mate, you're taking forever to get into your aim. What the fuck are you doing? And that's what he sent me a message on Instagram, because I was getting to my anchor point and then just doing this, trying to find my aim. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I had a hard look at myself and then started following your shit. And it has a big influence on me, right?
He saw your Instagram and was like, bro, what are you doing?
Well, no, I send him. Because I've got to know him a little bit. So sometimes I'll send him one going, hey, what do you think about my shot process, this and that? And he goes, mate, great controlled shot, but what the fuck are you doing with your aim? You're taking forever to get into it. That's not practical. And then I was like, fuck. So I started having a look at all your stuff. And then I was like, bang, basically, as soon as I draw back, I'm already on the target then, and I just find my anchor point, and then all of a sudden it all seems to line up. But I know some people wouldn't have heard that before, and I don't think a lot of people would do that method. Can you talk to me? That was one of the main things about this podcast I wanted to get across to people to try.
Right. So one of those things that I talked about earlier, like recurve procedures and recurve knowledge, was applied to compounds. And the anchor is one of those things. With a recurve bow, you must have a solid anchor. It's got to be under your chin, and it's got to be locked, and you got to be touching your nose to the string so that your head is normal to the bow and everything works, right? On a compound bow, the peep is the anchor. It's like the rear sight on a rifle. The peep is the anchor, right? So the peep tells you where to touch on your face. So you hear people say, all the internet gurus out there say, you got to have a solid anchor and you got to have these knuckles right here on your, well, you'll find out pretty fast that when you slide your sight pin, like you want to mess around, you want to shoot 80 yards, let's say, and you slide that sight pin down to 80, you can't touch this specific spot on your face and still see the sight through your peep. Because when you slide the sight down, the viewing angle has to change in order to see the sight, right?
Yep.
So we let the peep be the anchor. So you draw the bow, and the reason that I raise the bow up, I'm keeping the arrow level with the ground, so I'm not going to shoot an arrow up in the air. So I'm keeping the arrow level with the ground, but I'm picking it up this high. And the reason why is the brace heights on compound bows are like this. So I can't, right there is the max of my range of motion. It's from here, it's about, I don't know, 18, 20 inches, right? But if I raise my hands up, I can get them closer together, you see?
Yep.
So then I can use the leverage of lowering my arm. I
Push pull.
use this leverage because with a compound bow, we draw the bow back like this, right?
Yep.
So if I set it and then pull straight back, right here, my body is in the way.
Yep.
So I got
Because
to
you're
go.
not, yeah, your arm's sort of almost scratching across your chest, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, I got to lean out and get everything out of the way so that I can pull back. So do a great setup, and then I move my body all over the place to pull the bow back, and I mess up my really good setup, right?
Yep.
So instead, I'm going to get my setup right, sit down on my hips, and then raise the bow up and pull it back. Boom. And you see how far away I am from my anchor? I hold it out away so that I can feel the pressure between my hands.
Yep.
The minute that I line that up, when I flatten that lever out, I don't have a good perception of that pressure anymore. So I leave it away from my face and I go boom, and I go, okay, that feels good and it feels straight. And I have the bow against the wall. Then I put my pin on the target because I'm about to set this shot up. I want to set the shot up at what I want to hit, not off somewhere out here and then go hunt the target down, right?
Yep.
So I'll pull back, settle my shoulders, release all that tension that I made when I drew. I put the pin on the target. Then I bring the peep just by moving my elbow around behind my head. I bring the peep in front of my eyeball. And I might need to tilt my head just a little bit to see through the peep because my eyeball and my anchor, they don't line up with each other, you see. So
Yep.
I have to do this to see through. I got to make my eye vertical with where I touch my face. The only reason that we really have to touch our face is so this unsteadiness doesn't make the sight unsteady. So when you just touch it, that helps you hold this part still.
Yep.
So when
Okay.
you draw and you get the peep close to your eye, you look through the peep first. That sets your head position with the target because the pin's already on the target.
Mm.
You look through the peep first, the pin is still there. Then you can solidify your anchor and touch your face wherever the pin says that you should touch your face.
Mm.
Because if you shoot a shot at 3 yards, the peep will feel really tight and really low. If you shoot a shot at 100, the peep will feel really tall and loose because of the viewing angle
Mm-hmm.
through the bow. So the peep is the anchor. Draw, pin on the target, look through the peep first, then touch your anchor. And watch what happens if I anchor first. I'll pull back and I'll anchor. Then I have to turn my head and look through the peep. So you see, I have all this string interference right here.
Yep.
It's
Pushing
going to
into your
make
face.
my,
Yep.
I'm,
Yep.
yeah, I'm right-handed. That's going to make me hit left and it's going to make my broadheads go nuts, right? But if I draw back, look through the peep first and then touch my anchor, you see, I don't get all that interference anymore.
Yep.
I have open space. My face is not anything below my eyeball, like or below the tip of my nose is not touching the string so that I get a good, clean, clear, straight shot. You can experiment with this if you stand in front of the paper like you're going to tune your bow. Shoot a shot without anchoring or anything. Just pull it back and hold it away from your face and shoot a shot through the paper. Then bury it into your face and touch your face to the string and then shoot another shot. You'll see that the tear in the paper will change.
Yep.
I show this to customers every day that I'm explaining to them how form changes, how the paper tears. So I'll take their bow that is tuned to a bullet hole and I'll make it tear high, make it tear low, make it tear left, make it tear right, just to demonstrate that if I have a spectrum of position, you know, when I pull
Mm.
the bow back to full draw and I'm not very rigid about how I do that, then the shot is different. So different, it changes the tear through the paper even.
Now, I also heard you talking about it can be useful, this technique can be useful for people who struggle with the target panic side of things where they can't get their sight up. They just can't get it up. They can't get it up because they're starting, they're bringing their anchor, then they're coming up onto the target. They're like, it's just about coming, bang. Whereas if they use that technique, it's already on there. So they're a little bit less likely to want to just snap that shot off as soon as it gets onto the target. Is that a fair point?
That's exactly right. Everyone learns archery the wrong way. And I can't even teach it the right way here because people are so eager to shoot arrows, right? If I were to do this right, you would learn technique about pulling a bow and setting up a bow. And, like when I say setting yourself up to the bow, you'd learn that technique. And it would be several lessons before you actually even started shooting arrows, because I would teach you how to operate the release first and explain to you how the form makes the release aid operate. Then I would show you how the bow fires and how follow through and pressure works. Then after that, I'd put a target up at very close range, like so close you can't miss it. And I'll teach you to use that new form that you learned so that you could hit the bullseye. What most everybody does, they get their new bow, they walk up to 10 yards and half-ass sight it in, they back up to 20, and they start shooting. And they don't have any concept of form because they're new. So the pin's all over the place, right? So what they start doing is the pin's everywhere, and they gain a little bit of control of it, and they get it close, and they finally get it on there, boom, and then they shoot it as quick as they can before it moves away. And they program that into their brain, and their subconscious connects this shot process to what they see.
Right.
And the process isn't driven by form. And this is Joel Turner's niche here, where creeping up to the target and I can't get the pin in the target, right? The pin won't go in the target because you're not putting it in the target. You're hoping that it'll get in the target, right? And your release won't fire because you're standing there aiming, you're not shooting. You have to actually and intentionally do the form and change the pressure so that the release fires, right? And Joel Turner's part is the mental process and the determination that it takes to actually actively do that thing rather than just let it happen to you. So if you stand there at full draw waiting on something to happen, archery will happen to you and you're not going to like it, right? But if you do archery, if you tell the pin, if you stick it roughly, just stick it right in the middle of the target and then look through your peep and then start changing the pressure until the release fires, you'll have a successful shot. But if you just get the pin close and hope that it gets there, it's not going anywhere unless you move it.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's just not going to work, right?
And
So
yeah,
that
it's had a
procedure,
big
the shot begins with the pin in the middle. It doesn't end with the pin in the middle.
Right.
And that's how people train themselves, is that as soon as the pin touches the middle, shot's over. But once you learn, you don't do anything until the pin is in the middle. And then you start shooting the bow, right?
Mate, it's made a huge difference. And I've just had a blank bail at 5 yards and 7 yards, I think, inside my garage, just doing multiple shots and just concentrating, actually not on the aim. And it's just had a massive difference. I've shot out to distance 60 yards, and I think that's probably one of the best things I've learnt, getting the sight, looking through the sight, getting it on the target. And then I wouldn't say I had bad target panic or anything like that before. I obviously had Joel and I worked a lot on my shot process and that, but just setting it up nicely, having it all pointed on there and shooting at a closer distance to not be so focused on the aim where it's just all about the aim and then the form just goes out the window. I find I've I've only been doing it for about 8 weeks, maybe 14 to 20 arrows a day sort of thing. But I was a little tired at first, just pulling that bow back. 15 sort of goes, 15 arrows in a row. I've got a quiver of 20 arrows or whatever, but it definitely built some good endurance, and I feel like those neural pathways are getting cemented nicely now with having that pointed, the sight on the target before I take my anchor point. I think that's just a really big point that I had no idea about, and I would say a lot of people that even listen to this would not have ever heard that.
Yeah. And, Joel Turner's big thing, the basic root of what it is he's trying to teach, is that the way people learn how to shoot, their subconscious ends up being the thing that triggers the release. Subconscious sees the sight getting close and it just shoots it, right?
Mm,
And he's teaching people to break that connection and actually flip it, because you want the subconscious to maintain the position of aim, because it can make those minor calculations and keep the pin in the middle and catch up with it the whole way without you doing anything. And then you can consciously operate the release,
mm,
right? And Joel's thing is that he has those uh, chants that you use inside your head to make sure that you're focusing and concentrating and you're keeping your executive thinker turned on and in the process of the shot. So all of that also included with the rest of the form and all that, make that clean. And then doing those repetitions, because just doing reps isn't enough. If you do a perfect rep, right, then you'll learn much faster and your technique will be cleaner. So how do you get as many perfect reps as possible? You pull the target up close so you make it so easy you can't get it wrong.
mm,
And you can keep your pin right in the middle of the X at all times at 5 yards. So when you master the form, you've blank bailed, you have a very consistent routine, then you're teaching your subconscious to maintain aim while you're mentally focusing on what you're doing to actually shoot the bow, right?
mm, mm.
So you get it working at like 5, and then you add a couple of yards. So you slowly increase the aiming difficulty so your subconscious can learn how to maintain aim. It's like an open recorder that's constantly recording everything that's going on, and it develops these processes in the background to accomplish what it is that we're trying to do. If you force that through this walk back process to concentrate on the aiming process so that you can consciously shoot your bow, as you move the target back in small increments, after a couple of weeks, you move it a couple yards, couple weeks, you move it a couple yards. You just keep walking it out
Mhm,
until you get to the full distance. Then your subconscious will be doing the aiming and you'll be consciously making decisions, actively shooting the bow. You will never have my release won't fire or my pin won't get in the target. Because if your pen wouldn't get in the target, you've let it down already. You're
mm,
not standing there struggling because something was wrong in your setup, because when you pull back, the pen was all over the place. And that's the very first signal. Oops, I made a mistake.
mm.
Most people stick with that and try to tough it out. You should immediately let down,
Yeah.
reset everything and get it right, and then pull it back again and look through your pen and evaluate, is this it? Yeah, this is it. All right, here we go. Right.
Mhm,
So the more times that you do that in practice, pull back, it's not right, let down, fix it, pull back, it's right, shoot. And you consistently do this let down thing, you get better and better at your process, and you have less reasons to let down as you go along. So once you're fully developed and you really have it in hand and it's working, you won't let down a lot. Like
yeah.
I've gone through um, Lancaster, Vegas, and NFAA, National Indoor, I probably let my bow down twice. In practice, I let down a little bit more because I'm being strict
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not shooting it unless it's absolutely perfect in practice.
Yeah.
But in tournaments, I stop fixing things. I stop monitoring for perfection. I just shoot my bow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I get my best results. I just let the training work. But then when I get home, I'm paying attention to every little thing that I do, trying to make sure that it's perfect. Many people do that in reverse. They pay attention to every little thing they do and try to make it perfect in the tournament. And then they just shoot when they're practicing.
Yeah.
Flip that and you'll get greater results.
The analogy of perfect practice makes perfect, right?
Right,
I think people sometimes, yeah, as you said, get that maybe around the wrong way.
right,
Teaching yourself, no point teaching yourself, like you're setting those neural pathways. If you're making errors, right, or if you're unaware of you're making those errors, you're training yourself to be shit, right? You're actually
right.
detraining yourself.
And that's kind of the importance of coaching, or at least getting a lesson every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
because you may be having a problem and you think it's, your elbow or something, when in fact it's something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And a good experienced coach can watch you shoot 5 arrows and then they'll go, okay, so I'm guessing you have problems with up and down stability in your bow. And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? I said, because I can see that little mistake that you're making. And
Right.
they're like, oh, I thought it was this. And I was like, no, it's not that, you know.
Right.
And you see it all the time. A guy's unsteady. What's he do? He starts messing with his stabilizers. And that ain't got anything to do with it. It's the form, right?
Yep.
Stabilizers are the people will let me move my bar down so it'll help hold my bow up. That's garbage. It's bad science. It's just not going to work. The form of what you're doing, if you're holding steady pressure on the bow, it'll stay still. If you soften on it, the bow will dip or fall away from the middle of the target, right?
Yep. Yep.
So unsteadiness is a form thing. The stabilizers are there not to make you steady or help you aim. The stabilizers are there to keep the bow still because you pull the bow back, the limbs bend and the cams rotate and the arrow slides back. When you let go of the D loop with the release, you no longer have any control over anything. So the bow has to change shape and push the arrow out without changing how you aimed it. So those stabilizers are there to keep the bow still just for the instant that the cams are rotating and actually launching the arrow. That keeps your point of aim locked where it was when the release aid opened, right? That's what stabilizers are really for.
Mm-hmm.
People that are using those to fix their shot, their bows get heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier until they figure out later that their bow is shooting them. They're not really shooting the bow. They're not really in that much control over it. And they've glossed over a lot of archery mistakes just by um, adding weight to the bow. So you probably saw, I think you may have seen, because you mentioned some stuff out of that video that I have on YouTube that's about taking all the weight off of your bars. So
Yeah.
you can actually see the mistakes that you're making and correct
Yep.
those. And then walk the weight on in small increments so that you have just enough to create the forgiveness that you need, right? But not so much that you're having to work to hold the bow up, right? You want the bow to work with you. You shouldn't be having to control it, right?
I think in the hunting world, it's probably, a little bit less weight on the bow because you got to carry it around all
Mhm.
day, but that may be the more target stuff. Yeah.
Would think. I see guys running around on YouTube now. They got back bars on their bow. That rear bar is there to offset the leverage of the front bar. And that's if you have a front bar that's 30 inches long.
Yeah.
If you've got a 8-inch or 10-inch front bar, there is no leverage. You don't need a back bar. That's just extra weight that you're hauling around for no reason.
Getting caught up on trees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
nice.
like, and a lot of them that, and I know why the stabilizer companies do it. They get to sell more bars,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
look at Tim Gillingham. He's got 4 stabilizer bars on his bow. If that catch hold, man, stabilizer sales are going to go through the roof because the guy needs 4 long rods now instead of just one.
I'm sure you'll love that.
Yeah, I'm getting in the stabilizer business if that starts catching
Oh,
on, man.
good. Hey, George, what about releases? Is there, I know we're running out of time here a little bit for you, but is you grip on the release. So I know you've talked a lot about having a soft hand on the release and the analogies of a simple movement of, say, your ring finger, even on, say, a handheld release, how much difference that can have on the outcome of your shot. Can we cover that a little bit?
Yeah, so the release aid and how it operates depends again on biomechanics. So your index finger is your strength center, right? When you're pulling or grasping, right? So what happens is my hand angle changes when I pull with a handheld release, and it tends to emphasize the index finger. So it goes this way. So this line right here is straight, right? Let me try to get the angle right here. So when I draw the bow back and I start pulling on the bow and I'm keeping this ring finger firm, right? When I stretch my hand, you see which way it goes? You see it kind of goes, the angle changes when I do that naturally. The release is designed to work how your hand and wrist works if you allow it to do that. It's not really meant to go like this.
Yeah.
So if you wrap your thumb around the trigger and just pull, you see my thumb travels backwards. That pulls the release.
Applies it. Yep.
Pulling pressure stabilizes the pin and the target. And the ring finger being buried in the release makes sure that the release can rotate the way it needs to actually fire.
Yeah.
So that technique works with hinges, it works with buttons. If you have a wrist strap release, you'll just hook your finger over the trigger and then relax the muscles in your wrist as you pull. And that allows some pressure to transfer from the strap to your index finger so that it can actually put enough pressure on the trigger to make it break.
Mm-hmm.
So if your hands are shallow in the release like this, you lose a lot of control. If they're too deep on the release like this, you lose a lot of control. So right in the middle there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I add a little bit of grab pressure. You see how I kind of bend those top knuckles there just a little bit. And when I'm pulling, I let those top knuckles kind of yield just
Yeah.
a little bit. And that's the process that makes the release work. And it works for button and hinges. It's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People call hinges a back tension release, but in actuality, they're all back tension. If they're properly shot, you have to have pressure between you and the bow to keep the pin steady and make the release break in a consistent way.
Yeah, so that's the idea with pulling back tension, like pulling through your shot. You hear a lot of people pull through your shot, is to keep that pin steady, isn't it? It's to pull the bow into a line, yeah?
Right. That's that quiet, steady pulling. And if you think of it, you're not actually moving the bow. You're just maintaining positive pressure because if you stop moving, the bow is going to pull your hands together. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the way it works. So you can't just stay still and maintain 16 pounds exactly against the wall. So you want to be a little bit heavier, a little bit positive pressure so that you don't leak and it doesn't cause the pin to be unsteady. And
Nice.
you'll find if you pull your bow out and shoot, if you pull as hard as you can against the wall, I mean, be ridiculous with it, the arrow still hits the middle and it's pretty steady.
Right.
So you can't really pull too hard, but you can definitely be weak and sloppy and your pin will be unsteady, and your shots will be really unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. One thing, I shoot the stand thumb button release, and after I did Turner's podcast, we were talking about just having a closed finger on there and using the back tension, as you sort of mentioned, rather than just sort of punching the trigger. One thing I found is putting the 4-fingered panel on it rather than having the 3. I found that gave me a lot more control, having my last finger on my hand sitting on a firm finger rail, I guess you could call it. There's the adjustments on them. I found that was quite effective as well, just to give me a little bit more feel of that whole release across, rather than just being on the 3 fingers. It was all the way across those 4. And sometimes if I am having a little bit of drum, I'm like, oh, there's not enough pressure through that ring finger and my little finger. And as soon as I put a tiny bit more through there, I feel like my shot breaks a lot easier.
Yes. So it doesn't matter 3 or 4. It's a somewhat placebo effect by adding that 4th finger, really. But a lot of people find giving their pinky something to do
Mm,
kind of helps their process a little bit, rather than
mm.
letting it be out here and be all tight, because that interrupts the pliability of your hand. The pliability of your hand with a release depends on these muscles right here being somewhat soft, or
But
otherwise, when you pull, nothing happens, right? If your hand is hard and you pull, it's immutable, so the release doesn't fire. And a note about the closed finger, don't do that. And here's why. Your thumb is mounted down here at the bottom of your hand. So it pulls the trigger through the extension, right? So if I hold these 2 fingers together, I don't get the extension that I need when I'm pulling against it. So that'll make the shot timing or the speed be very patchy, right? But if I just hang my thumb around the trigger and get it buried in there, right in the crook of my thumb there, if I really get that buried in there like that,
yeah,
the slightest little pull pressure makes everything work just right.
right.
So
More
don't touch
temptation to
these
punch
2
it though.
things.
More
Well,
temptation
see,
to punch it,
that's
not
the
really.
thing. That by the time you're shooting your bow at distance at targets, you should have worked out the whole
Yeah,
punching
okay.
thing again,
Yeah,
because shooting the release is no longer a right now command, like do
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right? Like that. It is a begin.
yeah,
So you begin and you're pulling, adding pressure, bang. And by the time you get out to 20 yards and you're shooting arrows at targets, your shot execution should be razor sharp.
yeah,
It's timed. You've trained your subconscious to aim. You've done the walk back, and you've really got it. And that's like 80% of pro level scores is having great shot execution.
yeah.
There's a video out of Matthias Fullerton, and he's the new hot dog right now. There's a video of him winning a World Cup, his final shot. And then there's a video of his final shot at Vegas. And they're both like carbon overlays of each other. And one of them was shot at outdoors at 50 meters, and one was shot indoors at 20 yards with 10,000 people holding their breath, waiting to see where his arrow hits. And both of those shots overlay with each other with absolute perfection.
Wow,
It's unreal how good that kid is.
amazing, awesome, man. So much in there. I feel like I could sit here for hours and pick your brain, mate. Yeah, there's a lot of
Here,
information.
let me do this. I need a plug right quick. Anybody that's listening, if you want to sit for an hour and pick my brain, go to improvemyarchery.com and we'll do a video session just like this. Even if you're in Australia, you need to improvemyarchery.com, and you can book yourself for an online lesson. And then we'll do this just like you and I are doing, except you'll be standing out in the yard shooting your bow and your camera's on a tripod.
I was going to ask you, is that something that is available for people? Like you said, they can put a camera on a tripod and go through some online sort of stuff with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what a lot of people do is they'll take their phone and they get like a little phone holder so they can have the phone landscape, kind of like
Yeah.
they have, like
Mhm.
this, and they use the forward facing camera so they can see me here and I can see them, shooting the bow. And I can do things like I gave you that second view so I can show you videos of other people doing it correctly so you can get an idea of what that looks like and walk you through it. And I find that I I was reluctant to do online lessons because I wasn't sure that it would be effective, that
Mhm.
it would be too hard to see what people need or whatever. But when COVID happened, I was pretty well forced to do it. And
Yeah.
because my business went to flat zero as soon as all that happened. So I've had to rebuild all the way back. But the it's quite effective. I can see more than I thought I could, when people
Yeah.
are shooting their bows, and it works out really well.
Awesome, mate. Mate, we'll pretty much wind it up there. I know you got some stuff on. I just have one last question for you, mate. And it was if you could send your 20-year-old self a text message, what would you say?
Let's see. My 20-year-old self, well, other than don't date redheads, let's see. What would I say? I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out, and there are a ton of mistakes that I could have avoided, but a lot of the things that I did and the mistakes that I made got me to where I'm at. And I'm pretty happy with where that is right now. So I'm pretty good. But my 20-year-old self, I would probably say it won't last forever. Go for it now.
I like it.
Don't wait until, well, when I do this, then I'll get that. Right? I procrastinated a lot of things as I was moving forward, like big life events, and I didn't throw myself into them 100%. And there's a few things in my young life that I kind of missed out on, because I was a little nervous, like I had to be talked into moving across the country and taking a job in a new place.
Mhm.
Uh, I would probably be that voice that said, just go for it, right? Just jump. And if you don't like where you jump to, jump somewhere else, right? And that's what I tell all the kids. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I tell them, don't worry about the rest of your life. Just worry about the next couple of years. What are you going to do for the next couple of years?
Yeah.
And when you see a fork in the road and it looks good, take it. If you don't like it, course correct, do something else, right? I've had probably 5 different professional lives over the course. They've all been in archery, but I took the fork in the road a whole bunch as I went along. And I think that's good advice for people that's going and they're a little apprehensive is just do it. If it makes sense, do it.
Awesome, mate. Hey, thank you so much, mate. I had heard that you're a bit of a legend, and I knew you would be, but I can confirm you are a freaking legend. You have, mate. This is the 1 year anniversary podcast for me. This is number 26, I think, and so I've only started out in the podcast, like 12 months ago. Uh, but I've had some cool people on, and I've had some good information shared. But I reckon, without a doubt, this is probably the most special podcast I've done for sharing of information, mate, because your knowledge is endless, obviously, and just the way you explain yourself and the way you talk, yeah, fucking hell, mate. Thank you so much. I'm a little bit, I'm fanboying you a little bit here, mate, but I just can't thank you enough because I could literally sit here. I think we've been going for an hour and 40. I could literally sit here for a week and just pick your brain and fucking hell, yeah, that's mate, thank you so much.
You are absolutely welcome.
Champion.
All right. I
Oh,
will I'll see you next time. And if you want to do this again, I'll be glad to do it again. Maybe we'll go at 9 o'clock instead of at 7 next time.
Well, now I'm going to bug you with, I'm going to send you my videos bugging you like I do Joel. But no, mate, I would really like to do a form video with you, as in like I'm happy to pay, to do a little class or something like that. Just, yeah, man, that would be fantastic. Yeah, to have the opportunity to have you correct me would be amazing.
So why don't you set yourself up? Let's tell the people now.
Hang
Why
on,
don't
hang
you
on,
set
hang on,
yourself up?
hang on. I'd already hit, stop there. Yep, yep, yep.
So why don't you set yourself up? We'll tell the people now that we'll do another podcast and we'll adjust the timing so that you can actually shoot outside. And the podcast will be you getting your lesson. And
Yeah,
you can
cool.
be asking me questions about other stuff, but I can also be giving you a lesson and you can be standing there shooting your bow.
Amazing, mate. That would be
And
an unbelievable
you can let
opportunity.
everybody watch how a lesson goes.
And how shit I am. No, I'm happy to share my form, and that's one thing. I haven't been doing it for too long, 2 years now, but I will put myself out there and share some techniques and shooting, and have people. I'm happy to take criticism or critiques or constructive feedback of people. So yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, you'll find that, whatever issues that you've got with your shooting or whatever that you got to work on, no matter how good it is or how bad it is, there's a gazillion people out there that have the same exact problem.
Mm.
And then you're going to work it out on camera and they're going to go, oh, that's what I need to do to fix that. Right. So you could, you know, passively help tons of people just by enduring it yourself and letting them watch.
Love it, mate. Thank you so much again, mate. You touched on it there. Where can people find you? ImproveMyArchery.com if they want to book a lesson or.
MyArchery.com, George Ryals the fourth on Instagram. And if you just type GRIV, George Ryals the fourth, IV, if you just type that in Google, you'll turn up all the YouTube and everything. I've got a series called Thing a Week on YouTube that I'm doing with Last Chance Archery. The last one that I filmed and released was in 2018, and we've filmed Jonathan and I. He's married now with kids. We did the initial thing of weeks, when he was younger and wasn't as busy. So now he's back, married with kids, and he's like, let's relaunch Thing a Week. So very soon, more of those Thing a Week videos that people like will be out, and we'll be covering some new stuff. We'll be redoing some old stuff that I know more about now, that sort of thing.
Legend, mate. I'll be onto it. I've been cramming as much of your stuff in, of course, having you on the podcast. I wanted to do the right thing in the honor of sort of at least looking into your methods and learning as much as I could. And mate, yeah, I just can't thank you enough. So I'll let you go, brother. But mate, you're a legend, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, George.